and welcome to Ladies of Another View. I'm back. I'm joined today with April and Jan, and I am Patty. I guess I got the order wrong, Jan and April. I was looking in the screen. Everything's
they know.
backwards. But I do know on the end we have Representative Sebastian Ertelt. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. You've been very busy. We attended a press conference last Thursday over at the Capitol, and you wanted to call out the fact that the way Burgum is using his money to manipulate the election within the Republican Party is very controversial, really not on the up and up as far as you're concerned. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. I really believe that it is election interference, and primarily because, as we all know, and hopefully most of the audience knows, there is supposed to be a separation of powers in our system of constitutional government, executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, and Governor Burgum is muddying the lines between the two. And so really what the governor has been up to is contributing to a multi-candidate committee, which in turn is running advertising either against conservative candidates or for less conservative or even liberal candidates in the Republican Party, and even non-endorsed Republican candidates against the endorsed candidates. So far, this election cycle, he's contributed $1.5 million to that multi-candidate committee, and in the 2020 election cycle, it was over $3 million.
Okay, that's a little bit of change there. Yep, very substantial. Let's go. We have just a little clip when Rick Becker was talking about the issue. Let's take a look.
First, his actions are unseemly, improper, and an affront to the people of North Dakota. By influencing these elections, he is subverting the separations of power of the branches of government and the checks and balances therein, things that we respect and cherish. His lack of transparency in this matter is a slap in the face to North Dakotans. He refuses to be forthcoming on who he is helping, who he is opposing, and what his goals are with legislative races.
So Rick basically is saying he's going against checks and balances.
Yep.
And he's pretty blatant about it. He's so blatant. What did he do the day after the press conference?
Yeah, so the day after the press conference, he added $600,000 to the multi-candidate committee. And yeah, here you can see the $300,000 was beforehand, the $600,000 was afterward, and that brought it up to the total of the $1.5 million this election cycle.
And that was the day after the press conference, calling out the legitimacy of him doing this, correct?
Correct, yes. So it was, I mean, it's an obvious direct response to the press conference.
Well, he's had some direct responses in the past where the people called him out and then he backed down, as we saw during the pandemic, the mask situation, the bar and restaurant restrictions, those types of things. So he's been called out in the past by the public. So what can the public do to call him out this time?
Sure. Well, there's several provisions really in state law, in the Constitution, that give us the ability to place checks on tyrants in any position, whether it be in the executive branch, judicial, or the legislative. So Article 10, Section 10 is the provision in the Constitution which basically prohibits the governor from threatening or bribing members of the legislature. There's provision in the Century Code 16.1-01-04, -10-04, and that prohibits false advertising in political advertising. And
can we stop there for a minute?
Yeah, go
false
ahead.
advertising.
Yep.
Let's take a look at something.
Sure.
And you tell me, is this false advertising? And some of the flyers, some of the things that are being said against you, the funding, that you're against funding the North Dakota National Guard. Is that true?
Well, it's not true because I'm not against funding the North Dakota National Guard. What they're doing here, and that's covered in that Century Code too, is you can't be intentionally misleading about it. And that's really what that advertisement is doing. Yes, I voted against that particular bill that provided funding to the National Guard, and there's certainly reasons for voting against any particular bill, let alone an appropriations bill. That one, for example, constituted a 32% increase in the budget over the prior biennium. And so while I certainly want to adequately fund the North Dakota National Guard, I do think that 32% is perhaps a little bit of a big jump, just to the next biennium. And there were also a couple other provisions in there, one for a $10 million expense for a museum, and that did allow for use of private or federal funds, but we are federal deficit spending, so I don't know if we should be spending $10 million federal funds or otherwise on a museum. And then for the Camp Grafton expansion, up to 6,000 acres of private land would come under control of the state government. Some of that, actually the most of it, would be under lease agreement, and I think around 1,600 actually purchased land. And so again, while I'm not against doing those things necessarily, it's the amount and the speed, I guess, at which those are ramped up.
Well, just to clarify, you mentioned that it was under Article 10, Section 10, I believe. Is it not 5?
Section 10.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
The other thing that I kind of found kind of telling is that the same type of advertisement against you has come out against legislators all over the state, and a good portion of them are the endorsed candidates. So what does it say about our governor if he's going against the endorsed candidates? It sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he's going against the choice of the people who went to their endorsing conventions and their reorganizations and said, here's who we would like to put forward. And a lot of them resoundingly. So what gives, Gov?
Sure. Well, let me get to that in a second. I wanted to highlight a couple other potential things that can be
Absolutely.
done. Okay. We actually had legislation in the prior legislative session, House Bills 1191 and 1496, the latter of which was my own, and those were simply to increase the transparency in the reporting so that you could see not only the contributions to the multi-candidate committee, but also to who they were supporting or opposing and how much, which the independent expenditure filers like the Brighter Future Alliance has to do. There are also the options of recall, and again, that can go for any elected official, but could be used in this case, as well as impeachment. And the legislature has the authority over that impeachment proceeding, and I believe it's the House of Representatives in particular. And related to the party leadership, if you will, that are really acting contrary to what the district parties are saying that they want for their candidates, I think that it's a direct affront on those party members. So it's really the country club Republicans are trying to take over the mouth, if you will, of the grassroots Republican.
The people's choice, right?
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Right. So it's the governor's choice versus the people's choice in some
You couldn't have said it better.
situations here.
Yeah.